Hola, bienvenidos a todos a mi canal Spanish Blueprints. My name is Joshua, and I'm sure you have heard this sound by now. Either from Spanish speakers or other speakers from other languages. For some Spanish learners, this could be a very pleasurable and entertaining experience. Or for others like me back in the day, dreaded trying to pronounce la doble R. And it was their biggest enemy when it came to learning how to pronounce different words in Spanish. Pero tranquilo, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to pronounce la doble R. And I know that if you are an English speaker, that this can be incredibly difficult because there's not really many words where we're actually making this rolling R sound every single day. I know that this was very challenging for me as an English speaker. Just because your mouth is not used to making that noise, so it's something that you really have to practice. You just have to get used to over time. There's a few things I want to touch on before we actually get to the pronunciation of la doble R, and the first one is that it is going to take time. So when you think about learning Spanish, I want you to think of it as a marathon. You might have heard this before, as a marathon and not a sprint. And that is definitely the case when it comes to pronunciation within the Spanish language. Because especially as a beginner in Spanish, you need to understand that you are coming into a completely new world with new sounds and new words and new phrases, and your mouth has to get adjusted to that. And that's why it can be very challenging to pronounce la doble R, because you're not just pronouncing la doble R, but you're also pronouncing a word. And that word could be one that you have never heard before and that you have never said before. So that's why I like to promote the Spanish alphabet, because that's going to help you be able to pronounce la doble R just a little bit more. If you do need help pronouncing the letters in the Spanish alphabet, I have made a video just on that. And you can find the link to this video in the description box below. Depending on which word it is, you're going to be saying la doble R differently. For example, Ricardo versus perro. A lot of Spanish students, they might think that they have to speak exactly like a native Spanish speaker right off the bat, but you don't have to sound exactly like someone that you're seeing on TV or that you're hearing on the radio right away. So with that, you just need to be very patient so you don't get frustrated, that you don't sound exactly like that anchor or exactly like this actor or actress that you just saw in a movie. When we're pronouncing la doble R, it's very important to keep in mind that you need to focus on gaining an accent that sounds more like a native Spanish speaker, because that's going to help you out a lot. So it doesn't make sense for me to try to use the accent that I'm speaking with right now, because I'm trying to speak a word that is in Spanish. So I'll give you an example. It would be like saying perro, right? So perro would be the the Spanish word, but if I try to use my accent right now, I'm going to say it like perro. As you can see, there's a complete difference between those two different sounds there. So that's why it's bien importante. It's really important that you transition, if you're an English speaker, from English to Spanish, because there's a big difference when it comes to pronunciation. So another thing that I've noticed is that you don't have to make it such a long sound like like perro. I feel like sometimes someone can just be playing around, but I feel like we sometimes exaggerate it in our heads. But then that sound could also be longer or shorter depending on how that native Spanish speaker is explaining something. For example, like when I'm talking to one of my friends from Mexico, he might say one word like rico, which is rich, then he might actually make that sound a lot longer. So he'll be like rico. Then if he uses that in a sentence, it's actually very difficult for me to even notice that he is pronouncing la doble R. For example, he could say, no tienes que ser muy rico para rentar este apartamento. Like, you don't have to be very rich to rent this apartment. So don't forget that the doble R can come in all different types of forms, and it's not just like a rigid sound. Alright, so to learn how to pronounce la doble R in Spanish, what we're going to do is actually start with the English word ladder. So when you say the word ladder, the last part of the word, der. So where your tongue ends up, da, at the top of your mouth, that is where your tongue is going to be when you're pronouncing la doble R for some words as well. So just pronounce saying that, but very, very fast, or as fast as you can. So ladder, and then you're going to start to breathe out. So when you're at the top of your mouth like this, you're gonna try to blow out air. So first, say ladder, the end part of the word really fast, and then you're gonna stop and then blow out. So like, so lad, and then see if you can get your tongue to vibrate like that, because that is the motion that your tongue is going to be in. It's going to be like this. And a lot of people get this mixed up, is that you have to actually force that movement yourself. You don't have to force it yourself. Your breath is helping your tongue make that movement, and then after that, it kind of just goes automatically up and down, up and up and down. For example, and then it just gets a little bit easier and easier once you get that first. You'll see. So the difference between you forcing it versus kind of your mouth just doing it automatically when you give it a little bit of air. So not doing this la 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 la, but actually you saying the word first, so, and then saying that end part, then letting the air do the rest of the work. Hopefully that makes sense. And then also keep in mind that when you see an R, you don't always pronounce la doble R, because it's just going to be more of a soft R. For example, dinero, corazón, and números. So for each of those words, your tongue is just touching the roof of your mouth one time. So dinero, one time, and then corazón, and then números. And dinero is money, and corazón is heart, and número is number. But when you go to the doble R, you're going to see that it is a lot more strong. So we have rico, that means rich or delicious if you're talking about food. And then we also have Ricardo, which is a name, Ricardo. Tierra, which is land. And then we have guerra, which means war. Just take your time and practice. If you can't get that, that full vibration, that's fine. Just go back to the latter word again and just try to repeat that sound. So hopefully you'll be able to sound out la doble R very soon with just a little practice. So I would look up a few words that contain la doble R pronunciation, and then just practice those words, as much as you can. And, if you need to, go back to that latter sound as well, just to make sure that you know how the movement of your tongue should be. But then also make sure that you revise the Spanish alphabet as well, so you can pronounce the word correctly. Because once you pronounce that word correctly in Spanish, that's going to help you be able to roll your tongue a lot easier versus if you're just doing that, like I said beforehand, in your English accent. Thank you for watching this video, y hasta la próxima.